the importance of that and how to do that. And the importance of it, that is that the number of homeschoolers in our state is growing all the time. And so we've got to grow with them. And the more people that we have in leadership in our state, the more families we can serve and help. And the other reason for building our teams is to multiply ourselves so that, you know, we're not all going to be doing what we do right now forever. And there's a pretty big turnover in volunteers and leaders in Homeschoolers of Maine. Some of us have been around for a really long time, and other people come and go because they are finished homeschooling, they've moved on or whatever. So whenever anybody leaves, that leaves a void in whatever that person was doing. And so we need to multiply ourselves, and we also need to replace ourselves, so that, you know, so say I left next week, if I have a team built around myself, hopefully I have trained those people who have been around me to do the things that I do, so that my leaving wouldn't be a huge absence for Homeschoolers of Maine, but someone else could jump right in and do the things that I do. So the first thing we need to do in building our teams is to invite other people. Oh dear, sorry guys. First malfunction. The first thing that we need to do is to invite people to be a part of the things that are happening with Homeschoolers of Maine. And maybe that would just start with inviting people to a field trip or whatever that you might be doing, to the convention, to the youth curriculum sale, invite people to getting started workshops. I think getting started workshops are really beneficial for even people who've been homeschooling for a long while. I think that there's information there that helps people, whether they just started, haven't started, or they've been homeschooling for a while. But anyway, we have to do the inviting in order to get people to know what we're about and know what we're doing. And then, you know, as we look around ourselves, look for people who are invested in homeschooling, people who are invested in what Homeschoolers of Maine is doing, people who have gifts and abilities, and everybody has some sort of gifts and abilities to share with other people. You know, people who have a good reputation, and people that can work with others as a team. And then after you sort of find those people and you think, wow, they would be a real asset to Homeschoolers of Maine, then help them to get plugged in somewhere. I started off with Homeschoolers of Maine as a volunteer, doing different things at the convention or at the youth curriculum sale, or you know, wherever I was needed. And then, you know, started working alongside other people who were doing things that I now do. And one of the things that I really never wanted to do was to public speak, use technology, all of which we all are doing right now, really outside of my comfort zone. But the important thing to me, I feel, is to model what we do. And if you are a part of things that are going on, and you're not the in-charge person, but you're just there, seeing what someone else is doing, it would be a lot easier to do what that person does if you've seen what they do. For example, teaching a getting started workshop. I never wanted to teach a getting started workshop. I don't like public speaking, but I sat in on a number of different getting started workshops with other people, Carolyn Simons being one, and Carolyn also will be the first one to tell you that she's not a public speaker either. That's not where she's super comfortable, but yet she's the one who taught me how to do that workshop. So it's good to model what we do, and then invite other people to be there. So let's say, so in my region, we have homeschool roller skating, we have playground dates, we have getting started workshops, we have portfolio reviews. So modeling those things would mean bring your team members along with you. So I would love to replace myself in my playground days and get a younger mom to start doing those things, because my kids are getting older and aren't excited so much to go to the playground anymore. So let's say I have someone else take over that part of what I'm doing, then start inviting them to come to a portfolio review with me, or start coming to a getting started workshop, and they're seeing what I do. So eventually it wouldn't be so scary for that person to teach a getting started workshop or to host a portfolio review, because they've seen it modeled, because they've been a part of it. I don't know about you, but whenever I'm invited to do something new, I'm sort of looking for, is there going to be a person there that I am familiar with, that I could connect with? Or have I been to this place? Am I familiar with the place that I'm going? And I think that's human nature. I don't think I'm the only person who feels that way. Like, you're looking for some connection to something. And we want to be involved in the things that we're comfortable with, and we're comfortable with the things we're familiar with. And for a number of years, Kim Mazzoni was the head of Capitol Day. And we just went. That's an event that we enjoy going to. And every year I would just say, hey, I'm available to volunteer with whatever you need. And she would put me in different places doing different jobs. And then last year, Kim was unable to do it. Someone else got the event all organized, but she wasn't sure she was going to be able to be there. And she said, could you manage things there that day? Well, because I was familiar, if someone had asked me to do that and I had never been to the Capitol before, I would have said, no, I don't think I can do that. But because I had been there, because I was familiar with the surroundings, because I was familiar with the people, I was familiar with the jobs that needed to be done there, I could readily say, yes, I can do that. So that's sort of the point in modeling what you do, is to make other people familiar with what you do. Homeschoolers of Maine has, what do I want to say, sort of instructions for every job that we do. So someone else could pick up that manual and say, okay, this is what we do in the inventory reduction sale. So someone else could jump in and do that job. But how much easier is it not to just have that manual, but to have seen what the person before you did and how they did it? And then you might tweak how you do things. Everybody does things a little differently, but you're going to more easily be able to jump into that role if you've seen it modeled for you. So that is, I think, a really important part, is just inviting your team to do the things that you're doing. Even if they feel like, well, I would never want to teach a getting started workshop. Jen Martin, who runs the skates, she does getting started workshops with people she meets at the skates. you know, that information that she would hear at the Getting Started workshop, she would use that also talking with people one-on-one on the phone or through email or at the skates. So it's good, even if she never teaches a class on Getting Started, that information is good for her to share wherever she is. So modeling what you do is very important. And the ultimate goal is to replace ourselves. And so if you think about this, if you're a regional rep, and we all are in different leadership roles, if you're a regional rep and you have several different things that you are responsible for doing in your area, if you were training another person to do all of those areas, if you're training several different people, we're working on building a team around Jen for the homeschool skates. I'm working on building a team for playground dates. And if you could replace yourself in all those different areas where you're now working, then your job then becomes, once you have other people doing all of those things, then your job becomes supporting and encouraging those people who have taken over the areas where you used to work. So now your job is to be their support and their encouragement. We all need help sometimes, and sometimes we get into the idea that well, it would just be easier to do it myself than to train somebody else. And the honest truth is, yes, it would be. But there's times when life happens. We have a family emergency, or we get burnt out, or we're ready to move on to the next thing. It's so much easier for the organization if we have already trained other people to do the things that we do, and we need to move on. Then there's someone else potentially to slide right into that position and not leave a big gap for months or possibly years before they can find another person that would fit in that spot. So yes, it does take time to train other people and to invest in other people, but that's what is going to cause our organization to grow and to still be here in the future. We have to make that investment into Homeschoolers of Maine so that Homeschoolers of Maine will be here in 10 years and 20 years, as long as the need is there, and as long as it's growing, we need to grow our organization as well. I'm just turning my notes. That's probably noisy, me turning my pages. So the other thing to keep in mind is that working with people is always challenging. There's always different personalities and that sort of thing. You know, people have different ways of doing things, and we should all be striving to do things the Homeschoolers of Maine way. Like, we should know the purpose of our organization, the purpose for the things that we're doing, and ultimately that's to point people to Homeschoolers of Maine and to provide the things that people need through Homeschoolers of Maine. However, within that, we all have different strengths and weaknesses. We all have different ways of doing things. We all have different personalities. And it's important to make room for all of those different people types. And in working with people, it's important to just decide right up front that when a conflict arises or someone hurts your feelings, you're going to forgive them. Just decide that ahead of time. You're just gonna forgive them and move on and work together. We all need to be willing to learn from other people and be humble, and sometimes let people teach us a new and different and sometimes better way of doing things, and be willing to change the way that we do things to be more effective for Homeschoolers of Maine, because our work with home isn't necessarily about us, but it's about the organization and the things that we're trying to accomplish as an organization. And then just always encourage other people to do the things that they do with the highest integrity. Whether you're a volunteer or whether you're getting paid for a position, it's always important to give your best, to put your best face forward for the organization that you're working for. And so that's just sort of the general thoughts that I have about team building. I just really feel that it's important for Homeschoolers of Maine moving forward into the future, and for serving more families, and for being more effective. So that is what I had to share with you guys tonight.